This story delves into the unraveling of Adam Palmer's seemingly perfect life, culminating in his untimely death. It explores themes of betrayal, family, loss, and resilience. Adam's wife, Lydia, becomes the emotional core as she navigates her grief, the fallout of her husband's secrets, and the suspicion surrounding his death. Let us begin. Adam Palmer lived a life that, to the outside world, seemed perfect. With his sharp intellect, striking appearance, and apparent success, Dee built a world of opulence, an English manor, a luxurious Bentley, and a family that appeared close-knit. Yet beneath the surface, his life was built on a fragile foundation, one that a shadowed observer knew all too well. Adam's outward confidence masked the fractures in his world. His relationships, carefully curated for public admiration, were riddled with unspoken tensions. His wife, Lydia, bore the weight of his transgressions silently, her strength and creativity dulled under the strain of his indiscretions. His children, Mia and Oliver, unknowingly grew up in a house brimming with unacknowledged conflict. For years, Adam's charm had been his shield, deflecting the growing cracks in his life, until the night that changed everything. On the evening that marked the end of Adam's charade, the atmosphere was deceptively serene. The setting sun cast golden hues over the manicured gardens as Adam, clad in bright yellow and green swim trunks, headed toward the pool. His routine was predictable, as was his confidence in his untouchable life. He performed his nightly ritual, stretching, flexing his muscles, and taking in the grandeur of his estate. To an outsider, this was just another day in the life of Adam Palmer. But Adam was not alone. Hidden within the dense foliage of the garden, an unseen figure waited, clutching a phone in one hand and holding their breath. Their plan was meticulously crafted. A thin wire, barely visible, was stretched across the poolside, touching the base of the metal ladder. It was positioned to ensure that Adam's final dive would also be his last. As Adam climbed the diving board, he gazed out at the horizon, utterly unaware of the danger below. The shadowed figure's heart raced as they pressed the button on their phone. Adam dove gracefully, a splash rippling across the water. Seconds passed. Then a minute. Adam did not resurface. The observer watched as silence enveloped the scene. Adam's life, his arrogance, his betrayals, his successes, ended as he sank to the pool's bottom. The figure retrieved the wire, coiled it neatly, and vanished into the night, leaving no trace of their presence. The perfect crime, executed with chilling precision. For Lydia Palmer, Adam's wife, the discovery of his lifeless body in the pool was the beginning of a nightmare. Lydia, a woman of quiet strength and creative passion, had long lived in Adam's shadow. Their marriage, once filled with hope and love, had deteriorated under the weight of Adam's infidelity and control. Yet, for the sake of their children, Mia and Oliver, Lydia had stayed, navigating the delicate balance between partnership and resentment. #, the morning of discovery. The news of Adam's death sent shockwaves through their lives. Lydia's morning began like any other, filled with mundane tasks. The school lunches, the hurried morning exchanges, and the cacophony of routines shielded her from the dark truth awaiting her outside. It was only when a sharp scream pierced the air, a scream that would later be revealed to be her own, that she understood the depth of her new reality. Standing by the edge of the pool, the image of Adam's motionless body etched itself into her mind. Those garish green and yellow trunks, once a source of private ridicule, now symbolized something far grimmer. Her knees buckled as she stumbled backward, clutching the edge of the patio table for support. The pristine turquoise water of the pool seemed to mock her, its surface unbroken except for the still figure beneath. The sight of Adam, a man so full of life and bravado, reduced to this silent, lifeless form, was surreal. Lydia's trembling hands fumbled for her phone, and the shaky, almost incoherent words she spoke to emergency services were ones she never thought she would utter. "My husband he's dead in the pool." #, a crime scene unfolds. The police were swift to arrive, transforming the Palmer estate into a crime scene. Yellow tape cordoned off the area that had once been a source of pride, and the murmur of investigators replaced the usual quiet hum of the garden. Lydia watched in a daze as officers moved methodically, their expressions grave. Neighbors gathered discreetly near the gate, their curiosity barely concealed by feigned concern. Whispers floated on the breeze, speculation blooming like weeds. Lydia's grief was compounded by their questions, each one probing deeper into the cracks of her life with Adam. They questioned her timeline, her movements, her alibi. What time had she last seen Adam? Had anyone else been on the property? Did Adam have enemies? Lydia, still reeling from the shock, could only manage fragmented answers. It was then that the revelation came. Adam had not died from drowning or a heart attack. He had been electrocuted. Hashtag shadows of betrayal. This revelation turned Lydia's world upside down. She struggled to reconcile the details. The concept of her husband's death being orchestrated by another hand haunted her. Suspicion cast its long shadow over her, her friends, and even her business. Among the suspects was Marianne, Lydia's once close friend, and the wife of her business partner, Ajay. Marianne had been having an affair with Adam, a betrayal that cut Lydia deeply. Their shared history and tangled relationships added layers of complexity to the unfolding investigation. Lydia's memories of Marianne were a patchwork of moments, once filled with laughter and trust, now stained by betrayal. Marianne's affair with Adam was a cruel twist, an act of treachery that Lydia could scarcely reconcile. And yet, Marianne's pain seemed genuine. She had lost a lover, even if he was never truly hers to begin with. Lydia found herself torn between anger and pity, though the former often won. Confronting Marianne was a tempest in itself. When Lydia finally stood face to face with the woman who had shared her husband's bed, the air between them was thick with unspoken accusations. Marianne's tear-streaked face was a mask of remorse, but Lydia's rage cut through it like a blade. "How could you?" she hissed, her voice trembling with fury. "In my house, Marianne, with my children upstairs. How could you betray me like this?" Marianne's excuses were a feeble shield against Lydia's righteous anger. "I didn't mean for it to happen," she stammered. "Adam said you didn't care anymore, that your marriage was over." But Lydia's bitter laugh silenced her. "You think that makes it better? That it excuses what you've done?" The children's grief. As the days stretched into weeks, Lydia grappled with the enormity of her loss. Her children were her anchor, even as they processed their father's death in their own ways. Mia's stoic exterior masked her pain, while Oliver's vulnerability tugged at Lydia's heart. Together, they navigated a new reality, one filled with unanswered questions and a gnawing sense of unease. Mia threw herself into her studies with a ferocity that bordered on obsession. Books became her refuge, a world where logic and reason offered solace amidst the chaos. But Lydia could see the cracks. Late at night, she would find Mia sitting by the window, staring out into the darkness, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs. Oliver, on the other hand, clung to Lydia with a desperation that broke her heart. He followed her from room to room, his small hand slipping into hers as if anchoring himself to her presence. "Will we be okay, Mum?" he asked one evening, his wide eyes brimming with tears. Lydia pulled him into her arms, whispering assurances she wasn't sure she believed. "Yes, sweetheart. We'll be okay. I promise." The investigation deepens. The police investigation revealed troubling details about Adam's life. Financial troubles, hidden affairs, and strained relationships painted a picture of a man whose outward success hid a multitude of sins. Yet, the mystery of his death remained unsolved. Who had orchestrated the elaborate plan to end his life?
And why?
Detective Inspector Cornish, a seasoned investigator with a sharp eye for detail, led the inquiry. His questions were pointed, his tone measured but firm. Lydia found herself reliving the events of that night over and over, her answers dissected and analyzed. Each new revelation added another layer of complexity to the case. The estate staff were interviewed extensively. The gardener, the housekeeper, the pool technician, all were scrutinized. Alibis were checked and rechecked. And through it all, Lydia felt the weight of suspicion pressing down on her. Hashtag, 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 a world transformed. In the end, Lydia's journey was one of resilience. She emerged from the shadows of Adam's life, scarred but unbroken. The truth of his death remained elusive, but Lydia's focus shifted to rebuilding a life for herself and her children. The mystery of Adam Palmer's final moments lingered, a dark thread woven into the fabric of their lives. And though the answers remained out of reach, Lydia's strength became a testament to the power of survival and the pursuit of truth. The estate, once a monument to Adam's power, became a relic of his contradictions. Lydia's steps toward the future were tentative but deliberate. The pool was drained, its ominous presence removed from the landscape. The garden grew wild, a reflection of the chaos left in Adam's wake, but also of nature's ability to reclaim and renew. Lydia's creative passions, long dormant under the weight of her marriage, began to reawaken, offering her a path forward. As Lydia stood on the edge of her transformed garden one evening, watching the sky fade into twilight, she felt the pull of possibility. The unanswered questions about Adam's death remained, but they no longer defined her. Her story was no longer bound to his shadow, and for the first time in years, Lydia allowed herself to imagine a future shaped by her own hand.